Okay, so we're moving into the discussion on the administrative side of things. And the kind of home base for the course is our Blackboard site. So if you go to courses.ccac.edu, it should bring up a sign-in page and just sign in with your same username and password that you use for everything, for email or for getting onto the computers on campus. And it should bring up a page that looks like this. You can navigate to the semester and to the course that we're in, and you should get a page that looks more or less like this. And again, this is kind of the home base for our course. So here you can see, for instance, the announcement that I sent out on Saturday, and other announcements for the course will pop up here. They're also forwarded to your email. So make sure that you check your CCAC email as well. But if you check both the Blackboard site and your email, you shouldn't miss any of these announcements that are posted. There are some useful websites and resources here. So some CCAC resources, some other third-party math resources, and then an Excel supplement on Coursera, which I'll talk about in a little bit here. But basically, we will use the Microsoft product, Microsoft Excel, for some of our data crunching and so on for things like computing averages, that kind of thing for larger data sets. And you can, just use the book. You can go through the book and kind of follow their instructions on how to use Excel, but that can be a little bit hard to follow. We'll do a little bit of work in class with Excel as well. Um, or of course, you can always just, Google, compute average on Excel or something and come up with tutorials that way. So if you're a little more self-directed, you can go that route. But if you want something a little easier to follow along, Coursera it's a MOOC site, a massive open online courseware site. And you can just go to this link. You can sign up for the course, and particularly weeks 1, 2, and 6, or I think they might call them modules 1, 2, and 6, probably are the most helpful for our coursework. Note that to kind of get a certificate that you've completed the course from Coursera, you do have to pay, but there's a link somewhere on the sign up page that says like audit this course for free or something like that. If you click that, it's free to get in. There are some restrictions, like I think there are sometimes some exams or quizzes or something that are kind of blocked out that you can't take. And you don't get a certificate for completing it or anything like that. But you can get access to the information that way for free. So I would recommend going the free route unless you have a really compelling reason to pay for it and get a certificate. Frankly, I don't think the certificates from Coursera count for very much in the employment world. So, your money, I would think, is probably better spent elsewhere. But again, you can get access to this information for free, just as an extra resource. For the Zoom tab, we have the Zoom links in here. So if you've made it to this Zoom meeting, this is where all of our class meetings for this course will be held. So it's the same meeting link for all of our class meetings. My Zoom office hours are Monday, Wednesday, 9 to 10, and Tuesday, Thursday, 12 to 1:30. Just because of the way that setting up Zoom meetings works, it's a little bit annoying. The Monday, Wednesday link is different than the Tuesday, Thursday link. So make sure that if you're joining in office hours, make sure that you get the right link. And just a little note down here, Zoom has a tendency to kind of force close meetings that only have me as the participant. I think it's usually if I start a meeting, somebody joins and then they leave, and then I keep the meeting going for, 15, 20 something minutes, then it'll just close the meeting. So it's kind of unfortunate, but so if that does happen occasionally with these office hours, I usually try to open the meeting and have it available, but if you do log on to the meeting and it says something like, please wait for the host to start the meeting or whatever that general screen is, just wait a couple minutes. If it did close the meeting in the background on me, then when you join the meeting, it'll send me an email that says, hey, somebody's joined your meeting. I'll see that email, reopen the meeting, and then we can chat. Also, sometimes I'm meeting with a student and it'll pop you into the waiting room while I'm finishing up with that student. So Okay, so I think that's all I had to say on Zoom. And if you're not familiar with Zoom, this is fall semester, so we sometimes have new folks, new to the college or new to this experience. There's some information down here as well. We'll come back to the syllabus in just a minute, as well as the course documents, but we'll jump down here to textbook information next. Our primary textbook for the course is Triola's Elementary Stats using Excel. That's our main textbook for the course. Note that the MyStatLab online homework platform, which is required for the course, you do have access to an ebook version of this book through that. So if you're happy using the ebook version, you already have access to it through MyStatLab. If you want a physical copy, this is an older edition, so you should be able to go onto the secondary market and get a physical copy for, I think, a pretty reasonable price. I try to use old editions until the bookstore people start yelling at me to update my editions so that that way you can get access to a physical copy for a little cheaper if you want. For technical courses especially, or really for maybe for all courses, but especially for courses like stats or maybe biology or chemistry, stuff like that, it's kind of nice to build a small library of books because a lot of times, maybe you read this section in our main textbook and it makes a lot of sense. You're like, okay, great, you attend the lecture, you understand it. But the next section, maybe just the way the book puts it, the examples they use, the way that I addressed it in class, maybe it just didn't click so well with you. So having another couple of books or references that you can go to when you're struggling to kind of fill in those knowledge gaps is, I think, super helpful. So one of those, actually my favorite intro stats textbook is this one, Introductory Statistics by Prem Mann. Again, this one is actually has the baseball on it, so nice little sports uh, relation there. It's actually my favorite stats textbook, but we don't use it because their ancillary system is not nearly as good as MyStatLab. So that's a Wiley textbook, and the Wiley Plus system um, is pretty outdated, let's say. There's a couple others here that, well, one other here, the LaRose book I like as well. But really, if you go to something like Half Price Books or something and look at the statistics section, kind of any introductory statistics book that covers basically the same topics that we're going to be covering, should be a good resource. And some students learn best by doing, by just kind of working and drilling a lot of problems. And again, for a lot of different technical courses, these Shams outlines are great resources. Basically, these are just problem books. They're not so much textbooks. For each new section or topic, they have kind of a short introduction, probably a little too sparse, for you to just read and understand it. But if you've already read the material in a textbook, sat through a lecture, it's a nice just little refresher. And then they work through maybe 5 or 10 problems where they do the problem statement. They work through all of the steps of the problem and get the answer. Then they have maybe another 5 or 10 problems where it's a problem statement and an answer, and you supply the intermediate steps. And then they have some problems that are just like homework problems where there's just the problem statement and no answer. But a lot of students like to drill the kind of first 2 sections for areas that they're feeling a little bit less confident on. A similar um, group of books to Shams outlines, and by the way, Shams has all kinds of fields. If you get the statistics one, get the one that actually says statistics. There's several that say things that are like statistics, like there's a probability in statistics one, but that's the topics in that are different than what we're covering in this class. So just make sure to look at the table of contents and make sure that it seems like the same kind of stuff we're covering. The Humongous Book series is similar to the Shams Outline series. Um, Same kind of setup, just a different company. Personally, I like the Shams a little bit better. I just like their setup and their problem choices a little better, but some students like the Humongous Books. And all of these, like for the textbooks, if you find a copy that's a couple editions old, you can probably pick them up for $5 or something like that. The Shams outlines and the Humongous books are maybe $20 or $30 brand new, so you can find those used for pretty cheap as well. Um, So those are good resources for the course material that we'll be learning. Um, a couple of kind of entertaining resources are these two books. These are thin books, easy to read, fun reads. They're not super technical, but this one, How to Lie with Statistics. So it's kind of a tongue-in-cheek, like telling you how you can lie with statistics, but really the point is like here are all the ways that you can be lied to with statistics. So maybe watch out for these. And then statistics you can't trust. So it's written in kind of that these are both written in kind of a fun format, more of a just kind of, evening read kind of format than a sit down at a desk and go through it carefully like you would with, say, a textbook. Um, and I would think that, you could get these out of the library or something like that as well. Uh, so if you're interested in them, kind of fun reads related to stats, and then some resources that go a little bit into depth, maybe like, you know, take the amount that we're going to cover in a certain topic and go, 50% further than that. Um, One of them is this book, Undergraduate Econometrics by Hill, Griffiths, and Judge. So we'll talk about regression models at the end of this course. Regression models are a super important topic in finance and economics, and also in machine learning. So it's one of the foundational ways to set up a machine learning algorithm. So if you want to go a little bit further than what how far we're going to get into regression, you can pick up this book. It does not require calculus. It has some optional like appendix kind of sections where it does talk a little bit about the calculus side of things, but it doesn't require calculus. I think it goes about probably as far as you can go into the theory without getting into calculus, and without getting into a bunch of programming and data analysis kind of stuff. So I think that's a good resource if you want to go a little further in that direction. And again, I don't think we had anybody in healthcare, if I remember right. Um, but if anybody is going into healthcare or interested in healthcare, this book, Primer of Biostatistics by Stanton Glantz, um, goes into things like maybe a little bit of study design, things like hypothesis testing, it goes into those in a bit more depth than we're going to go into in the course. So those are good kind of resources that go beyond the scope of our course, and maybe prepare you better for those fields. So that's a list of kind of the main resource. The main resource is still our Triola book and my stat lab and the course lectures, but some of these others can be good secondary resources. And again, these are all like I wouldn't buy these or any of these brand new. You can find a couple editions old and a used copy for a lot cheaper. And then my information down here again, just a little note on the office hours and so on. Um, Being an online or a Zoom course, the preferred method of communication is email. You can call my office or call the faculty secretary, and I'll get a message that way. But email is strongly preferred. I'm not on campus all that much these days. I'm mostly teaching Zoom this semester. Okay, so before we get to the syllabus and some other course documents, are there any questions on what we talked about so far?
For the book, for I forget what it's called, but for
Mhm.
the book, do you have to buy it online or is it like free? Or do you have to buy like an access code essentially to go into the book?
Yeah, yeah. So to access it through my stat lab, basically you need to buy an access code. Yeah. Um, so we will talk about this in just a minute, but my stat lab is the online homework and exam system that we're going to use as an ancillary. And so when you buy access to that system to do the homework and exams, that comes with access to the ebook, basically for free. It comes alongside that access. Yep. Okay, so let's jump over to the syllabus then. In the syllabus folder, you'll see three documents. Oh, why did that? Oh, I uploaded a docx of this. All right. Um, the syllabus boilerplate I have as a docx in here, unfortunately. So that should be a PDF. I'll have to fix that. Let me actually write that down. I just uploaded the wrong file there, apparently the Word document instead of the PDF. Um, but the CCAC boilerplate has all of the kind of general colleges, what the college wants us to put in our syllabi. So I broke that out because that tends to make the syllabus super long, especially if you go to print it or something. Um, but it's here if you're interested in that. And let's work through the syllabus, the course outline. So the first page here is really, again, just some other course boilerplate, talking about the learning outcomes, the topics, and so on. This is what's going to be covered in the course. Our section information. One important thing to note is that final exam week is the week of roughly December 9th. It really goes from December 10th, that Tuesday, through the following Monday, with the Tuesday after that as a makeup day. So just make sure that if you're planning any travel or anything like that, that you plan it after that week. So our class will be over the evening of the 13th, December 13th, that Friday. But you could have other classes that have a final exam that following Monday, or if something were to happen that, we get a snow day or something in the middle of finals week, that could even push an exam to Tuesday, the Tuesday following that 13th. I just realized that's Friday the 13th. Bad luck. So, but anyway, so just make sure you're aware of that. Unfortunately, the way that our internal systems are kind of set up, just for things like room scheduling and so on, they really only show uh, they show the end date as the last class meeting date, which would be something like the 9th or maybe that previous Thursday for a Tuesday, Thursday class. Um, but just make sure that you understand that finals week is added on to the end of that. Um, so our meetings go, or our, whatever, our course material goes through Friday the 13th. So we've already talked about the required textbook and some optional textbooks or optional resources. Some other required materials. I strongly recommend having a graphing calculator. We won't actually be doing any graphing in this course. I'm not graphing on the calculator anyway, but having a graphing calculator makes the number crunching so much easier. If you have a little, 6-function calculator or something, if you think of like adding together 10 numbers and dividing by 10 to say get an average, well, you like type in the first number and hit plus, and then start typing in the second number and the first number goes away. It's really hard to kind of check your work that way. With a graphing calculator, everything kind of stays on the screen. You can see exactly what you typed in and check everything. Makes things a lot easier. Also, the graphing calculator has some stats features that we're not going to really go through in too much detail on the course, but if you want to use those stats features, you're welcome to. Again, we'll talk a little more about MyStatLab in a couple minutes here, but another required material is access to the MyStatLab system. That's where the homework and the exams will be located. This is just in here kind of as a general reminder that you have access to Microsoft Excel and all of Microsoft Office through CCAC. So using your net ID, using your username and password, you can get or you can get access to Office 360 or 365. What I can never remember which one it is. If it's, all around or if it's every day of the year or whatever. But you can get access to Microsoft Office, which includes access to Excel for any of the simulations that we're going to be doing in class. Yeah, so if you don't have Excel on your local machine, you can get into it through there. You can also use Google Sheets. It'll work very similarly. So if you prefer that, you can use that too. Regularly checked CCAC academic email address. So that's super important. I know a lot of folks prefer to use maybe a personal email, or if you're a visiting student from another school, maybe you have another email address that you like to use. Um, but if you're not planning to regularly check your CCAC email address, at the very least, forward your emails to an email that you check more regularly. Um, and especially if you're not going to check your emails regularly, make sure that you're regularly checking Blackboard. So any announcements or anything that I post on Blackboard get sent to your email as well. So you should see it at least in one of those two places. And then the ability to connect to the Zoom meetings and participate in them. So having a stable enough internet connection. If you don't have a great internet connection at your house, maybe that means going to a library or coming to a CCAC campus or something like that. And having a webcam and microphone for participating in class, but also for the exams, which will be proctored with ProctorU. Again, we'll get a little more into that later on. And then some other resources, uh, tutoring, studying, that kind of study resources, that kind of thing. Those are all listed here. Are there any questions up to this point? Okay. So the grade for the course, pretty straightforward. So there will be 3 exams, a unit 1 exam, a unit 2 exam, and a final exam. Those are each worth 20%. I have a funky formatting here where I put 0.20 for the other ones and 0.2 for that one. And then the homework is worth 40%. So pretty straightforward evaluation plan for your final course grade. The email policy, if you email me, I do try to get back to you at least the same day or as quickly as reasonably possible. But please give me, 1 business day, 24 business hours for an email reply. So if you email me, Friday at 4 p.m., I might not get back to you till Monday. I'll try to get back to you before that, but don't wait until the last minute to email me about a question about, say, an exam or a homework that's due, something like that. That being said, if you do email me and you don't hear back from me, please send me a reminder email. I do get a ton of emails from students, from administrative stuff, or from general college emails. So occasionally a student email does slip past me, and I'd much rather have you send me a quick reminder, pop it to the top of my inbox, and I'll see it rather than you not saying anything and me missing it. And then, sometime 2 weeks later, I'm going back in my inbox, looking for something, and I see that I missed a student email. So much rather have you send me a quick reminder and then I can address it. That being said, with emails, it helps me out a lot if when you email me, you say what course and section you're in, like, hey, I'm in your Zoom stats section. And if you have a question about, say, a homework problem, the more detail that you can give me about what that problem is, maybe what approach you've already tried, what things you've tried and haven't worked or whatever, that gives me a better that gives me more information to go off of to kind of steer you in the right direction. I don't want to just give you the answer. Obviously, that doesn't really help with learning. But I want to try to help you kind of overcome whatever the next hurdle is that you're not clearing. And the more information you can give me, the better I can do that. We'll talk a little bit more about workload in a couple minutes here. That's in a different document. Academic misconduct, basically don't cheat in the course. Your work should be only your work, not somebody else's work, and also these days not ChatGPT's work or something like that. So not Photomath's work. So make sure that you're doing the work. You might be able to get away with using Chegg or something like that on the homework, but then whenever it comes time for the proctored exams, it's going to be more difficult to get a decent score on the exam if you haven't actually gone through all of the homework. So the homework is really there to prepare you for the exams. So definitely make sure that you're doing the homework all yourself. And again, if you get stuck on something, shoot me an email, ask questions. That's a much better approach than saying, oh, I'm stuck, I'm gonna, ask a chat bot or something like that. Okay, so a couple details that pertain to this being a remote course, a Zoom course. So again, just regularly check the Blackboard site, make sure you're able to participate in the Zoom meetings. Also, we use the online homework site, My Stat Lab, as I kind of mentioned. Again, we'll get into that a little bit more in a couple minutes here. There will be 3 exams, 2 unit exams, and a final exam. These will be proctored virtually through ProctorU. If you've used Examity before, ProctorU is a similar system to Examity. We're just switching providers for our proctoring service starting this fall. And basically what you would do is you log into ProctorU, you share your screen on your computer, you activate your webcam and microphone, you take the test, you submit the test, you close out the ProctorU session, and that's basically all there is. So it's just a little bit of extra work on the front end and the back end, opening the ProctorU session and closing it. But other than that, it's basically just you just take the test like normal. Um, and there's a couple reasons we do that. Obviously, one is just the general exam integrity, making it fair across the board for all students, but also we want to make sure that our remote and online sections, that the credits transfer well to other institutions. And this is one of the ways that we can really make sure that your credits are going to transfer. If another institution reaches out and says, hey, were these exams proctored? Was this an online or a Zoom class? Were these exams proctored? We can say, yes, they were. And very importantly, for exams, each of the exams will be open for roughly a week. Um, and because of that, so you can take the exam anytime in that window that works best for you. But because there's so much flexibility in when to take the exam, there are no due date extensions on exams. So make sure that you know when the exams are. They're listed in the course schedule that we'll see in a couple minutes here. Make sure you know when the exams are. Of course, I'll also announce them in class. Make sure that you take them not at the very end of the exam window, but sometime in the middle of that week. And then if something happens, if there's a technical glitch or something, um, you have the chance to kind of wait for that to resolve or to fix it or whatever before the exam window expires. So make sure that you're proactive about these exams. Again, there are no due date extensions given on the exams, so make sure that you take those well within the time window. Homework extensions, though, uh, you can ask for a homework extension, and for a course like this one, you will receive a maximum of 3 homework extensions throughout the course. So the way that works, you just shoot me an email and say, hey, this past week's homework, can I have an extension for that? And I'll give you a 1 week extension for anything that was due that past week. Um, Note that the extensions are limited to 1 week. So if you email me and say, hey, there was this homework set 4 weeks ago that I didn't get around to doing, can you give me an extension on that? At that point, it's too late to get an extension. You're going to be better served by kind of looking forward and paying attention to the upcoming material rather than going that far back. There is some other details in here. Make sure you read through the syllabus carefully. But again, the exam policy, just make sure you're aware of this exam policy and make sure you take the exams when they're scheduled. For calculators, as I mentioned already, I strongly recommend a graphing calculator like a TI-83 or 84. You can use, TI-89 or Inspire or any of those kind of products, or Casio or HP. I'll be using the 83, 84 in class to demo things as well as Excel. But very importantly, you can't use computers, phones, laptops, calculator emulators on those as your calculator for an exam. And because you can't use those for an exam, I do recommend that you not use those for homework either. You kind of practice how you want to play, so to speak. So, pick up either a TI-83, 84, or if you want to, you can actually use Excel as your calculator if you're comfortable doing that. You can you are allowed to use Excel on the exams. So if you want to use Excel as your calculator, you can certainly go for it. Um, it can be a little bit clunky though if you're just looking to do something, something fairly simple. And then a little bit about grading. If something in the course doesn't go so great, maybe you get to the say the first exam or something and just uh, really didn't have time for this course, really didn't, do well in the first, say, third or so of homework, you bombed the first exam, you're thinking, okay, I'd like to just have a fresh start at the course next semester. A withdrawal might be the way to go. So you can go to registration, you can ask to withdraw from the course. Of course, you should chat with somebody about what all of the repercussions of that are. But from an academic standpoint, um, on your transcript, on your record, you just get a W. It's not an A, B, C, D, F grade. It counts as 0 towards your GPA. So it doesn't, hurt or help your GPA having a W. And if you want to transfer later on, this doesn't look bad if you go to transfer. If you just stop attending, which some students do, they think like, oh, well, I'm not doing well in this course. I'll just stop going to this course and not do anything about it. Well, then you're going to get a 0 for all of those future homeworks, a 0 for the upcoming exams, for the final exam. That's almost certainly going to result in you getting an F for the course. And that's something you definitely don't want. That crushes your GPA. It looks bad if you're trying to transfer. So if you want to get out of the course, if you say, I'm done with this for whatever reason, or if something comes up in your life or job or something that you can't complete it, make sure you get out the right way. Do a withdrawal grade. If it's early enough, if it's in like say the first week or something of the course that you decide that you don't want to continue on, you can do a drop. Um, you can drop the course and you get most of your money back, maybe all of it. I'm not sure, but and it's like kind of like you never registered for the course. And then the incomplete grade, if you get to the very end of the course and something significantly extenuating happens. For some reason, let's say that, right before the final exam, you get into a car accident, you can't complete the final exam before final course grades have to be uploaded, something like that. Then I can give you the incomplete grade as a placeholder. And then, say at some point in the spring semester, you can complete the work that you need to complete and and then have your actual grade, the grade that you earned, swapped in for that I grade. Note that the student must have completed almost all the work. So this is not for like, oh, I completed a third of the class, but something came up like, with my work schedule or something. Can I just finish the, second 2/3 of the course in the spring semester? It's not for something like that. It's for a very strange circumstance, a very rare circumstance. Most of the time, it's where a student for some reason can't complete the final exam during finals week, and we need just that extra little bit of time. Or again, if you have a medical issue or something, 1 month into the class and you need a week off, but then you can come back and finish it. In a situation like that, we would work out an alternative schedule to get you caught up before the end of the semester. Um, but I like to go through these, especially in the fall semester, a little more thoroughly because a lot of students don't know about these kind of registration side of things. And just knowing about them can give you enough information to make better decisions about, some of these technicalities. I certainly didn't know about these when I was a student, and so I'm trying to spread the word now and give you a little bit more information in case something comes up. You can know a little more about what your options are. Or of course, if anything comes up and you're not sure, you can always reach out to me, reach out to an advisor, and um, and get a little more information, more specific to your situation. Any questions so far? Okay, and then the last bit of the syllabus is the course schedule down here. So this is a rough outline of what we'll likely be covering more or less each day throughout the course. This is a plan. It can be, adjusted here and there. We might be running a little behind at some points or a little ahead at other points, but we should be roughly tracking with these sections. Note the exam weeks. We have the Unit 1 exam week is the week of September 30th. Unit 2 exam week is the week of November 11th. And then our third exam is our third exam is the final exam. And because the course basically ends on Friday the 13th to give you a full week, I'll actually post the final exam before final exam week. So it'll be available from Friday, December 6th through Friday, December 13th, just in case the weekends work better for you. You can take the final exam a little bit before final exam week, and that gives you a little more flexibility that way. We also have an optional final exam review because all of our exams are online. They're not part of the class meetings. Just basically by contract, we need to do something during our scheduled final exam time. And what we're going to do is a final exam review. I know that the 11th being Wednesday is probably not ideal. It's a little bit late in the final exam window running the 6th through the 13th. But if you did have some big questions, or if there were some topics that you were really concerned about, you could pop into the review on Wednesday and we could go over any of that. And this is optional. So I'll be here, I'll have the meeting open and basically treat it like almost like an office hours. So it's an optional meeting. Okay, so are there any questions? We're going to talk about my stat lab a little more in just a minute here, but any questions on anything else in the syllabus?
For the exams, for the first two, are they timed with like the proctor?
Yeah, so all of the exams are timed. Um, so I've split out the exams a little bit differently than I had split them out previously. Previously, I had done a midterm exam and a final exam. I wanted to break the material up a little bit more to reduce the number of material per exam and to take a little bit of to split the weight between the exams a little more instead of it being like 30 and 30% or 20% each, so a little bit lower stakes on each exam. So I'm not sure what the time will end up working out to be. They used to be an hour 40 minutes or an hour 40 minutes for the midterm because it was meant to be basically one class meeting. But since I'm teaching all remote and I don't have to kind of coordinate things with my on-campus classes that have more time restrictions, um, I would guess, something in the ballpark of an hour to 90 minutes each for each of these
And then,
exams. Yep. And then the final exam is always 2 hours.
okay.
That's just an across the college final exams are 2 hours. Yep.
And then for the extensions for the homework,
Mhm.
so, like let's say that like I'm having trouble on something and I reach out for help, is that considered like an extension if I don't finish it in the deadline?
Um, Only if you ask for an extension.
Okay.
So you might decide, okay, I have a 95% on this one homework set, and it's one out of four homework sets that were due this week. Um, Maybe you didn't get that one problem right, but you reach out to me and it's a little bit late. You might decide to not use an extension in that case because that the gain in points maybe is not worth burning one of your extensions for that. Um, but maybe if you like were confused about a whole section and this was, there were three sections due this week, that might be a case where where it would be more beneficial to use an extension request and, complete that whole section. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Yeah, I'll never assume that a student wants to use an extension. It's only if you ask for it, or if I think that you're kind of asking for an extension, I'll clarify. I'll say, do you want to use an extension for this? And do you want to use one of your three extensions? Yep. But that being said, I would also not hoard extensions. It doesn't benefit you to finish the course with three unused extensions either. So, so there is a bit of a balancing act there. Any other questions?
Yes, for this site, oh sorry, for the assignments and tests,
Mhm.
do they populate on Blackboard?
Sorry, I didn't catch that last bit.
Like for the assignments and all the tests and all of that we have, like can you view the grades on Blackboard? Because I can't
Oh,
see that on there.
So all of the assignments and tests will be on my stat lab. And so I
Oh,
would recommend using the My Stat Lab gradebook. I won't have anything in a Blackboard gradebook. And the reason is that just getting the two systems to talk to each other is kind of difficult. And having me transcribe all of the grades is very error prone. So it's better to just kind of look on My Stat Lab at the gradebook that's on there, because that's where all of the homework and exam scores will be. And that's all that contributes to your grade. So yeah, so I would use the My Stat Lab gradebook as kind of your gradebook. I know in a lot of classes, in an English class, you might have like some papers and some of this, and that they kind of bring everything together in Blackboard. But since everything for the course that counts towards the final course grade is going to be in My Stat Lab, I would just use that gradebook.
okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
I had a question. I know you said there was an optional review for the final. Do you take like class time out to review the other two tests at all?
Uh, Generally speaking, no. Of course, at the beginning of any class, I'll ask, does anybody have any questions from last time? And you can always ask questions. Then you can always also come to office hours to review anything. But I generally don't. You can kind of see that the course is pretty packed. Probability and stats always tends to be a pretty packed course. So we don't usually have dedicated class time to review for the exams.
And then are there like, do you give us any study guides for the either test?
Yeah. So for each of the unit exams and for the final exam, I'll post a sample exam about a week ahead of time. It's a pretty similar exam to the actual exam. And if you go through that sample exam, I recommend taking it like the actual exam. So sit down, give yourself, time yourself, um, give yourself the material that you have on the exam, and go through and take it and see how you do. And that if you do well in it, if you feel comfortable with the sample exam, you should be comfortable with the actual exam. Or if you don't do well in the sample exam, you can look at what types of problems you got wrong, maybe, review those topics and then make another attempt at the sample exam. Mhm. Any other questions?
Yeah. I know I'm going to be out one of our classes because I have a work trip on that day. So it says on your absentee policies that you have to make arrangements to get class notes. And I noticed you're recording this class. Are you going to
Mhm.
be recording all the classes? And
Yeah,
I just go back and watch it?
yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I'll record all the classes. You know, that's more just kind of a general policy thing. For a Zoom class, everything is recorded. I mean, it could, I think it's happened once or twice that I've forgotten to start the recording for the lecture, but I actually have previous semesters lectures posted as well. Um, so yeah, basically that means, you know, go back, make sure that you watch the previous lecture, um, and then importantly, if you miss a class, um, I guess I didn't say it explicitly here, but oh yeah, here, or being prepared for exams. And importantly, uh, if you miss a class and there's an exam due that week, if that's part of the exam window, or if there are assignments due that weekend, again, it's your responsibility to make sure that that the exam is that week, or that that there are assignments due that week, and get them completed on time. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay, so all great questions. The other thing I want to go through really quickly before we talk about my stat lab is this workflow pointers document. I'm going to really skim it, but I really do recommend that you read through this carefully and that you really take it to heart. It is kind of difficult to manage a remote or online class, and that's what this document is to help with. And really what this does is it lays out what a typical week might look like. In particular, I want to note the kind of expected time spent for the course, and that's somewhere in the ballpark of 7 to 10 hours per week of work outside of our class time. So we have our 2 class meetings per week. Outside of that, to do well in the course, the typical student should expect to spend in the ballpark of 7 to 10 hours per week working on homework, studying for exams, taking notes, reading the textbook, those kind of things. If obviously this varies significantly based on talent for the material, your knowledge of the prerequisite material, how much else you have going on. If you're taking, 6 classes versus 3 classes, you can maybe focus a little more. If you have a lot of things going on in your personal life and you have to work in 30-minute chunks, it might take you overall a little more time than if you were able to dedicate, a few hour chunk of time a couple times a week. So all of this, is pretty flexible, but this should give you an idea of what the expectations are for the course. If you're taking, 6 classes, like, 18 or 20 credits or something, just be aware that that's, each class is like, say, roughly a quarter of a full-time job. If you're taking like 6 classes and, trying to work a job on top of that and have family duties on top of that, that might be something to look at whether you're overextending yourself. So just to lay out the expected time each week. Okay, so that covers the syllabus material. And again, the boilerplate, I will post a PDF instead of this docx. And that just has a lot of the information about like Title IX things and some registration stuff, some disability accommodations things. All of those kind of things are in that document. And then in this course documents tab, we have 2 things. One is this bookstore print on receipt access code. Somewhat annoyingly, I suppose, the bookstore system is a little hard to use. If you buy access to MyStatLab through the bookstore, they'll give you a code, but it's not the MyStatLab code, it's the code for a bookstore website that you have to go to generate the MyStatLab code. So this is the instructions to do that. And then these MyStatLab registration instructions, these are the instructions to get into the MyStatLab course. Oh, log me out. So if you come over here and you go to, I usually use my math lab, but so if I might call it my math lab, or if I call it my stat lab, they all mean the same thing. These days they're calling it my lab math or my lab stats, but I usually call it my stat lab or my math lab. So if you come over here, you can register for student access. Again, go through the instructions here. And then when you sign in, you should see a page that looks something like this, and go click on our course. And this is basically what you should see. So you see there's a course homepage that has some general information on it, but most importantly is this assignments tab. This is where the homework sets and the exams will be posted. You can see that there are some available already. The first assignment is just kind of a quick overview of some definitions and things like that. We haven't really covered the material yet, but again, these are all multiple choice. They're really easy to get right, and you have unlimited attempts on them. So this is really just to get you kind of logged into the system, to kind of see what it looks like when you open up a homework set, that kind of stuff. You'll also see that the first maybe like real homework, so to speak, is posted, the chapter 1 homework that is set to be due September 1st. So that's sections 1.1 through 1.3. And this is where you'll go, anytime that you're looking to work on the homework, or if you're looking for exams, I always post the exams at the top of the list here. So as you're working through homework, when we get to chapter 2, the chapter 2 will be below the chapter 1, chapter 3 below chapter 2. But just to make the exams easy to find, those will be at the top up here. There's a lot of other material in here. You can see the ebook you can get to. Whenever it loads. And you see, you can just navigate around. It looks just like the regular book. Even things like the page numbers and stuff are the same as the actual book. I don't particularly like the ebooks where they just have like each section you just kind of scroll. I mean, I get that that's a little bit nicer in some ways, but then if I'm referring to a page number or something, it's really confusing. How that page number from a physical book corresponds to this version or that version of an ebook. But this is basically just the physical textbook in digital form, page by page. And then the other thing that you'll see here is the grade book. Now, of course, I haven't, myself done any of the homework or anything like that. So right now I don't have anything interesting in here. But once you start completing some homework or complete an exam or two, you'll see that there will be your estimated score up here. You can dig into the calculation a little more if you want. And then your individual results will be down here. Each section, what your score was and all of that. So one of the really nice things about these online ancillaries like MyStatLab or WebAssign or similar systems is they really close that feedback loop immediately. So one of the really big downsides of homework, especially in a technical course like a math course or physics or something, is you tend to want to do a similar problem multiple times. So, maybe we're in chapter 3 and we're looking at, okay, I want to compute the average of a data set. Maybe there's 5 problems in doing that to give the practice in slightly different scenarios. Well, if you misunderstood something in the lecture, and if it's pen and paper homework, you'll go through, you'll do those 5 problems, you'll have done them wrong because you misunderstood something. You'll think you've done them right though. You'll hand in the paper, maybe a week or so later, you'll get the paper back, it's graded. Number 1, you got a bad grade on the homework, which kind of stinks. Number 2, you taught yourself to do it wrong. So you were probably kind of confused for the next couple of lectures because something wasn't quite meshing right. And number 3, now you have to go back and spend more time teaching yourself to do it the right way. Super nice thing about these online systems is you do, homework problem number 1, you complete it, you put in the answer, you get an immediate feedback that says, hey, you got this wrong. You can have multiple attempts. So typically you'll have 5 attempts. In the first couple of homeworks, you have unlimited attempts just to kind of get acclimated with the system. But you'll have 5 attempts, so you can go back, review the lecture, review your calculations, and then fix the problem right then and there, do it the right way, enter it. You get, say the correct answer on your second attempt, you get the full points for it. And then you can do the next 4 the correct way and really ingrain the right way of doing it immediately. So that's, I think, the biggest benefit of an ancillary system like this. And the other huge benefit, of course, is in a remote setting like this, and makes just the logistics so much easier rather than like trying to have you like do paper and pencil work, like scan it or something and send it to me, and then me try to grade it and somehow post it for you to view. It's a very clunky kind of system. And same thing with exams. Having everything, homework and exams hosted on a site like this makes everything just so much smoother and cleaner in a remote or online course. So I think there is a lot of value to a system like this. You do have to buy access to it, but that's kind of in place of buying access or buying a physical copy of the book. If we were doing paper and pencil homework, you'd have to get access to a physical copy of the book. And typically that would mean, buying it from the bookstore or something historically. So when you buy access to the MyStatLab homework system, you do get access to that ebook as well for free. So if you want to use the ebook, you can certainly do that. Or if you want a physical copy, if you prefer to work off a physical copy, you can probably find a physical copy on the used market for pretty cheap. That being said, though, if you bought a used copy of the textbook, a used physical copy, say from Amazon or something like that, chances are pretty good that it's not going to come with an access code to MyStatLab. So, you can't just buy a physical copy of the book and be done with it. You need access to this system. And if you buy a physical copy, it's probably not going to come with access to this. Okay, are there any questions on anything that we talked about with my stat lab or about the syllabus or anything else? Okay, so let me switch my screen share here for just a minute. So typically, what a class meeting will look like is I'll bring up uh, a OneNote screen like this where I've typed out some notes and we'll work through that. I've had students, I had students recently, I think over the summer, ask me if I could post the notes ahead of time. So I'm going to try to do that, get the notes posted, say for the upcoming week, maybe over the weekend or the week before, something like that. So if you want to print them off, you can. But I typically start each class with a quote of the day. So today's quote of the day, really kind of a quote and an idea. This is from P.T. Barnum, the famous circus guy. True economy consists in always making the income exceed the outgo. Wear the old clothes a little longer, dispense with a new pair of gloves, mend the old dress, and so on. Maintain a margin in favor of the income. Now, you could take this maybe literally in the finance and economic sense, but I think the better way to take this is more figuratively, that in life, having margin is very important and very beneficial. So, and I think this applies really strongly to academics, and that's why it's the first quote of the day. In other words, if you wait until, say Sunday evening, let's say, to take an exam that's been open for a week and is due Sunday at 11:59, if you wait until Sunday at 7 p.m. to take it because, you just didn't plan ahead or whatever, if the power goes out or if your computer crashes or if the website is down or something like that, that little inconvenience becomes a catastrophe. It's like, I'm going to miss an exam and that's going to be 20% of my grade that I'm going to get a 0 on. That's a pretty big deal, right? If you build in margin, if you say, okay, I'm going to take the exam on Thursday and it's not due till Sunday, build in a little bit of margin. If something happens, the power goes out, computer crashes or something, you have several days to figure things out. You can get in touch with tech support, get in touch with me. You can go to a library, go to a coffee shop, go to a CCAC campus, right? You can make arrangements because you have that margin, you have that buffer, that extra time. And I see this all across my life. Like if I get frustrated at people in traffic a lot, but I notice that if I leave just enough time for me to get somewhere, I get a lot more frustrated at people in traffic than if I leave just 5 minutes earlier and have that little bit of a buffer. It's like, okay, this person's going slow, but it's not a big deal. I have some extra margin. And this can also apply to longer term things like, say, studying for an exam. Should you wait until the week of the exam to start studying for the exam, or do you want to start kind of organizing your notes and start reviewing, maybe at the end of, say, chapter 2, look back to chapter 1 and just spend an hour, half an hour or something going back and reviewing that material. At the end of chapter 3, maybe go back to chapters 1 and 2 and spend a half an hour working a couple of problems there just to keep it fresh, right? And then your run up to the exam is going to be a lot easier. So just kind of the idea or the quote of the day for today. And then today's main plan was doing introductions, reviewing attendance, and discussing the course materials, which we've accomplished. And we'll save until next time kind of our discussion on what is statistics, what are some applications of statistics, and so on, since we're about out of time today. So we'll start with that next time. That is kind of the beginning of chapter 1. And we'll plan to start there on Wednesday. All right. Are there any other questions? Okay, then we will end a few minutes early today, start Wednesday to start on Wednesday with the discussion of some applications of statistics. Maybe for Wednesday, if you want to, poke around the internet a little bit and see if you can find some applications of statistics to your field of study or your interests that maybe pique your interest, and then come prepared with those on Wednesday, and we'll have some discussions of some applications, some tools using statistics, and frankly, what is statistics? We'll address that as well. So I will see you all on Wednesday. Have a good one.
You too. Bye, Professor.
All right, bye. Have a good day.
All right.
You too.
Too.